Welcome to Big Data and Analytics Work Employment Relationship Sample. The Work Employment Relationship Survey, where our data has been extracted from, collects detailed information on employment practices, workforce characteristics, and employment relations. It combines responses from managers, employees, and worker representatives to give multi-perspective view on workplace dynamics. This presentation will aim to explore workplace characteristics and test relationship between categorical and continuous variables. After careful examination of the dataset, it was decided that total employees would be the continuous variable, while single site versus multi-site would be a categorical variable. If we assume that the group members in both samples are exclusive to one group, we can then calculate the mean to examine differences. This fits the premise of our study, as the research question is, does the average number of employees differ between single-site and multi-site workplaces? Before starting research, a hypothesis is needed, and this can accept or reject the null hypothesis. For this research, the significance error will be 0.05, and the hypothesis would be that there will be no difference in the mean number of employees between single-site and multi-site employees workplaces. My assumption is supported by Zoe and Andy Field, as they make a clear distinction that under the null hypothesis, we assume that experimental manipulation has no effect on participants. Therefore, we expect the sample means to be very similar. Univariate analysis. The figures for our continuous variable are 419.4, 105, and 14. These figures represent the mean, median, and mode, while the figure for standard deviation is 900.664. Finally, minimum and maximum range figures were 9,873, 9,668 respectively. The range of 9,668 implies there's a huge variance in the sample, demonstrating diversity in workplace sizes across single-site and multi-site workplaces. Upon examining the histogram, the distribution of total employees shows that most workplaces employ relatively small numbers of staff, with there being a direct correlation between the number of employees increasing and the frequency of the bar dropping. This leads to positively skewed or right-skewed distributions, which Corporate Finance Institute define as most of the sample being clustered around the left tail distribution, with larger figures extending distribution towards the right. Data from analysis for categorical variable break down the number of single-site and multi-site workplaces using frequency tables to determine how many workplaces are single-site or multi-site, then use percent tables to supplement our data by extracting the percentages of our employees employed by each sample. Results from our table demonstrate considerably higher single-site representation, with 17,891 workplaces being single-site, making up 79.7% of our sample, and 4,112 workplaces being multi-site, making up 18.3% of our sample. The variable is measured at the ratio level because it is numeric. It has equal intervals between values and includes a meaningful 0 point, which the National Library of Medicine used to differentiate from interval data. They cite that having a true 0 point gives it an additional property. Due to the fact research investigates two variables that do not impact each another, data is nominal. This is justified by data camp, who define nominal data as being mutually exclusive, meaning one event does not impact the other. Working in single-site or multi-site workplace will not influence the sample in the same sense seminar attendance would influence module results. Histograms show the underlying distribution shape of continuous data. Layer statistics provides reasoning for its effectiveness, stating it allows for inspection of data for its underlying distribution, e.g. normal distribution, outliers, skewness, etc. Finally, bar charts are designed for categorical, numerical, ordinal variables where data fall into distinct groups. Each represents frequency or percentage of cases in each category, making comparisons easy. Box plots show clear differences in workplace size across site types, effectively providing a base for visualizing the distribution of points across box plots according to Holtz. Multi-site have noticeably higher median number of employees and much wider spread, indicating greater variability. However, single-site workplaces are smaller and more tightly clustered. The single-site sample presents a U of extreme outliers, consistent with a positively skewed distribution. Normality. The histogram shows a strongly positive skewed, which Field defines as standard as a deviation from normality. On the contrary, Van Wanrooy Worth Survey and the 2004 survey both satisfy independence, as each workplace represents a separate organizational unit. The Vince test was significant, as our p-value of 3.683 being less than 0.05 demonstrates unequal variance between both groups, as homogeneity of variance assumption was violated. The Welch two-test sample was applied, which is appropriate when group variances differ. The Welch two-test sample indicated a significant difference in employee between single-site and multi-site workplaces. Multi-site organizations have had a higher mean of employees at 483.62 compared to single-site at 400.72. Cummins noted that 95% confidence interval was the optimal strategy, and is extremely uncertain of that outcome, or very confident in the outcome of the experiment. Within the sample, 95% confidence level did not include 0 for our mean, supporting the conclusion of a meaningful difference. The National Library of Medicine determines any value less than 0.05 as significant, meaning our p-value of 3.368 less than 0.05 is significant and unlikely to have occurred by chance. The difference between our both samples is showing a substantial difference in the multi and single-site stuff averages, with multi being 483.6 on average and single being 400.7, making a difference practically meaningful. Data suggests that multi-site workplaces tend to operate on a larger organizational structure, which is consistent with Collier et al.'s findings that larger firms adopt more formal bureaucratic structures. Overall, the results support research that workplaces differ by size. When comparing two data sets that are not mutually exclusive, independent sample t-tests can be applied, therefore making it an appropriate test for our single-site versus multi-site workplace sample. As research compares two categorical variables on a continuous outcome variable being total employees, this is further supported by Fields, who states that the t-tests are used for examining mean differences between two independent groups on an interval or ratio level variable. Confidence intervals provide research with a degree of plausible values for true mean difference. The p-value represents the strength of evidence against the null hypothesis. Cummins references to values that do not include 0 that support the conclusion that groups differ meaningfully. Using our p-value and our predetermined confidence level of 95%, results show a statistically significant difference in average number of employees between single-site and multi-site organizations, with multi employing 82.9% more employees on average. This supports Collier et al.'s prior evidence that organizational size is linked closely to structural complexity and formalization. First, the outcome variables trained on normal and positively skewed, and this contradicts best practice according to Farrick-Capizadeh, as you expect it to follow a normal Gaussian bell shape distribution, and this can affect parametric tests, although large samples can mitigate this. Second, group being unequal can lead to type 1 errors, with assumption of homogeneity of variance is not met. Lakin and Lays argue that using Welch t-test instead of normal test becomes a necessity in these circumstances. Third, potential confounders such as industry, ownership and sector are not controlled for, meaning that observed differences may partly reflect underlying or sectoral characteristics rather than site type alone. Future analysis could integrate ANOVA using the tool to compare more detailed categories of workplace type or regression models to control for additional variables and better isolate the effect of site structure. Based on Welch's t-test, no hypothesis rejected, indicating a statistically significant difference in mean workplace size. Multi-site organizations employ substantially more staff, and this is supported by Collier et al. And Van Wanrooy et al. Whereas find that organizational size is linked to greater structural complexity and formalization, although limitations such as unequal group size and non-formality, as Farrick-Capizadeh stressed, must be acknowledged. The analysis still provides meaningful insight into how workplace structures relates to workforce scale, demonstrating the use of statistical analysis in HRM.